Good Things with BBB helps you be a better business.
Have you thought about how artificial intelligence is taking over society, or more importantly, how it's going to impact your business? Well, on the All Good Things with BBB episode you're about to watch, we're going to interview Anthony Meany of Pearl Technologies about how AI can help your business and how you can ease into it with confidence. So join us on the next episode of All Good Things with BBB. Welcome to another episode of the All Good Things with BBB podcast, where we bring in experts to help you be a better business. So we are back again with Anthony Meany of Pearl Technology, who is the Chief Information and Security Officer there. We talked about cybersecurity recently with him, and that kind of tumbled into a new conversation about AI. And we were having fun and discussing, his view, obviously very pro technology, very innovative in mind. And I'm sporting my Sarah Connor t-shirt here today because I obviously have some concerns about it. So we are going to battle it out and give you the best information about how AI may or may not be able to help your business and what to look for when you're talking about some of these tools. So let's start off with, what is your overall perception of AI right now?
First, thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
I typically don't get invited back after nerding out the first time. So, I guess just overall, the hype cycle and noise of AI is it's difficult to see where we're at because it's changing so fast. And even if you pay attention to some of the marketing material, it's hard to know what's true and what's not. Right now, it's a lot of demystification, but I think if you get involved and start using it, you can pick out the balls from the strikes on what's real, what's not. There's a good video from 2023. It was Will Smith, and it was like eating spaghetti, if you saw that. It was a terrible video now, but at the time it was really popular. If you compare that to the videos that are being created today, it's unbelievable where we've come in a year and a half. So
see, and that's where I start to get that fear factor of, how are people going to know what is a fake and what is real, and how is that going to change our society? What are your thoughts?
A very legitimate concern. From the security side in me, we pay attention a lot to deep fakes, right? And there's a lot of scenarios where that's played out and people have been exploited and they've paid money to deep fakes. So that is concerning. However, you're going to get to a point where I think it's just going to become natural that you validate and you don't believe everything you see, which the skeptic in me likes, and it should have always been there.
Yeah.
Right. So I think naturally you're just going to see people kind of gravitate towards going to the authoritative source, not just listening to what they're seeing on social media. So to me, it's going to force that.
I hope so. I hope so much, because we've already seen so many scams, and even just little things like health claims or health results or beauty product results that just aren't even true, but you see it, you're looking at it, and it's like, well, here's a before and after, and that's got to be real, and so they click to pay, and obviously havoc wreaks afterwards. But what are some of the ways that you spot you're like, oh, that's not true?
Like if you're hiring people, you need to pay attention to the fact that there's a lot of fake accounts. And there was an FBI release last year about North Koreans trying to get jobs, and a company KnowBe4 who actually is in the business of cybersecurity hired one. So they published that. You can read it on the internet, but they did give some tips on, if you're in an interview with someone, to ask them to not blur their background, because sometimes blurring your background can kind of create some quality issues where if you are doing a deep fake, you almost don't catch it. But if you turn off the blurred background, that makes it a little more clear. And then to ask them to John Cena and put your hands in front of your face a little bit, because that'll break up the blurriness, and have them kind of turn around. But there's video tools you can use. So if you think about like your front lines, your recruiting and stuff like that, there are tools that can help them detect. So it's not on the human. They can also detect the audio. So the people who are interacting with maybe your front lines and the public can use some of these technologies to help them catch.
So using AI to spot AI.
Yep. Which, ironically enough, when I saw your shirt, it's been 20 years or so since I've seen the Terminator, but Sarah Connor was fighting, but she leveraged an AI Terminator to help her. So
Yeah.
I think there's some irony there. And
Valid.
and I do have a cyborg tattoo. So I think we need to join forces.
Yeah. I'm trying to be open-minded, as Sarah eventually was.
Yeah.
The only way I'm going to beat this thing is maybe to use this thing against itself.
There we go.
And find the good AI in here. So, you mentioned hiring. I didn't think about that, with businesses being kind of attacked the other way of someone applying that's not really a human. I know there's a lot of concern the other way of legitimate humans worried about their jobs being taken away. What is your advice to businesses who are thinking about hiring an AI tool to either replace or enhance their current business?
It's a great question. I guess I'd ask you a question. There's a large percentage of small businesses and startups that fail. What are some of those reasons that they fail?
One of the reasons we hear most is they can't find people to work.
And most business owners, as you start out, are wearing like maybe 10 to 15 hats. It's almost impossible to keep up with the HR, the legal, the accounting, and everything like that. So I think that a business owner should look at where their weaknesses are. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's HR, and then look for the AI technology that can help them. But I would start out with using AI as an assistant, maybe to enhance your workforce. And then once you get to a point where you're like, all right, this AI is doing everything correctly, then maybe utilize it a little more. An example of that is chatbots. I'm not a big chatbot fan.
Yeah, me either.
I think any business that's going to thrive needs that personal touch. However, if you're using the equivalent to a chatbot to help your frontline, so maybe you have a contact center or someone answering phones, if the AI bot's on their side, kind of helping them maybe ask questions or troubleshoot, if you use it long enough, you might get to a point where like, all right, this AI is 100% on spot. Let's just have it answer the calls. And the reason why I bring that up is that there's a lot of marketing pushes out there that says, hey, here's the silver bullet. Here's the chat bot. It'll do everything. And when you get around to testing it out, it typically isn't maybe a perfect fit for you. So that's why I feel like you should gradually work into it. Use it in the background until you feel comfortable, and then use the tool full time. But I think it could help a lot of small businesses that are struggling with having a content strategy, having an HR policy. And it doesn't like give you the silver bullet, but it gets you started and helps you out. It's kind of like having the equivalent to 1,000 Einsteins on your beck and call at 24/7, right? If a small company is not leveraging or thinking about leveraging it, their competitors are, and I think they're going to be left in the dust. No different than maybe 30 years ago if you're considering not using the internet. I mean, look how much we use email. So
I'm going to stick to my fax machine.
Yeah. I get that it is daunting. It is scary. Trust me, like I wake up every 2 hours crying, but it's sleep like a baby. It's a lot. But get a consultant, get someone to help you out and look at it for sure.
So how do you vet an AI tool? Like my first thought would be, how do I know that this thing I'm going to turn over all of my information to, or some of my good stuff, isn't going to, be the next cyber attack problem for my business?
There's like 9 layers of that question. So I'm going to peel back the onion.
Nerd it out for us. All right, here we go.
The first part about your data getting out. A lot of these tools are going to have these plug and play, hit this button, all of a sudden it's connected to your corporate CRM. And that, from a cybersecurity standpoint, I'm not a big fan of. You got to ask yourself, do you need this data in real time? Like, do you need it to be constantly updated? Or can you take all this data from your CRM, put it somewhere safe, and then take an AI tool and put it in somewhere safe too, not just have it out in the internet uncontrolled. That'd be the best way to get started.
Okay.
And then you can kind of see the power of the AI. Can it do the analysis of your data? Or is the data just not clean? And I think that this is the biggest roadblock people run into is they want to use AI, but their data is not clean.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just ask anyone in your company, hey, is everything in our CRM accurate? And if they shake their head, it's not time for an analysis of an AI tool to come in. So clean your data. And then you need to get the people closest to the procedures as possible, like your accounting team, to slowly start practicing and see if it's good or not. You can't just go off the sale of the product and say, this is going to fix all of our problems. You're going to kind of have to like put your toe in the water and kind of ease into that hot tub, because it's not as simple or easy as a lot of people are making it sound. So there is kind of a maturity model of just getting in there, getting acclimated, cleaning your data, getting people comfortable, finding where it can work and where it can't. And that's probably the biggest demystification of AI right now, is just learning what it is good at and what it's not. And for me, it's difficult because sometimes I look at something and I'm like, that's possible. AI could do that. And then you get in there and it's just not there yet. I'm not to say in 6 months it won't.
Right.
But from a vetting standpoint, it's just being optimistic that there are tools that can fix your problems, but being skeptical that you kind of just ease into it.
Do most AI tool companies have a privacy policy that the average Joe can understand?
They do. And you can always use AI to read that privacy policy for you. A lot of people use Microsoft. I'm not trying to promote products or vendors, but the typical corporation that's using like a Microsoft 365 suite or something like that, if you're to use their AI, it's all in the same guardrails as your SharePoint and all your corporate data you're putting in there anyways. It's when you start going to other third-party ones that you're going to want to validate. But to go to that answer, because we might not all be lawyers and know how to read privacy. A little trick I use often is, I'm going to school right now too. I'll ask AI to explain something to me like I'm 12 years old.
Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah, and obviously my IQ is 12 years old because like 13 or 14, it starts getting up there. So
well, it starts using like Riz and no cap. And you lost me.
Yeah. So it'll explain to me like I'm 12, like that makes perfect sense. And then I'll ask it to create a visual aid. And then it'll take that and say, hey, here's, what you're looking at. So if you are having questions, and I'd probably put it in a different AI, like maybe you're reading one AI's policy, put it in another one to get a third party validation. But and just ask it, hey, are there any ways, be skeptical, ask those tough questions and then see what it gives you.
I was just reading an article in the Harvard Business Review about how companies are incorporating AI into their talent acquisition, and command writing is a new skill set for people, like how to ask great questions of AI so you're using it to the fullest example. Have you seen anything like that? Like how to ask do you use AI to ask, how do I ask you great questions about this?
That's how I knew this Sarah O'Connor that I came in here with.
I feel like we're using our brains less and less. We're just like, okay, AI will do it.
All right. So I took a sip of coffee because I've got like 20 minutes. Do we have enough B-roll for this? So I've been in AI for, I don't know, embarrassingly enough, maybe 4 to 12 hours a day for the last year and a half. And anyone that knows me will tell you I'm not that intelligent. However, I've learned through time with AI that true intelligence isn't so much what you know, because we're all born knowing nothing, right? And if you accumulate everything we learn by the time we die, it's really but a grain of sand on the beach. It's not much in this big scheme of things. So true intelligence is asking the right question, right? That's what you're getting at. And I do a couple things with AI. They call it prompt engineering. It's really,
that's it. Yes.
Yeah, how you put data in and what comes out. And I'll bore you the details because this is about a 15-minute dissertation. But essentially, I'll tell AI where it is. And this actually follows the Chat GPT manual, which I know as a grown man, I read a manual, but we typically don't read we don't read the instructions. I did on this one. And you want to tell it who to act as. And this is important because if I wanted to act as a business owner or maybe a consumer, like that changes the glasses and lens it's looking at the world. So you tell it who it is, and you can tell it multiple things. Act as a CFO, a marketing, all of it. And it puts all those glasses on. And then the second thing you do is the context. This is the requirements, the background, the history, what you're trying to do. This is really from a Pareto standpoint where 80% of your time goes into the context. What are we trying to do? And then the third thing is you task it. Create a bullet point, create a marketing slick, create an interview, give it the task and tell it what it will be and what it won't be. Tell it it's 300 words, it's bullets, etc. And some people are figuring out those three things. But I'll tie this full circle. The fourth and fifth are where a lot of people are missing out. And the fourth thing is I will ask AI in this prompt, and I typically have this like copy and paste it because I'm not typing this out every time. But on the fourth one, I say clarify. Of everything I gave you, where I told you I told you where we're going, is there any holes? Like, do I need to clarify anything? Because AI will just do what you tell it, which is garbage in, garbage out. And as you become more comfortable with AI and you get better at what you put in prompt engineering, you'll start to put gold in and then you get gold out. And that's the sweet spot. And that's where every business can benefit from getting good at using it, because it's not a silver bullet. You can't just type a couple words in there. So it'll tell you, okay, yeah, based on everything, I would be more effective if I knew maybe the demographic of the audience or what city you're in or what industry we're talking to. And then you'll just answer those. Now you're interacting with it, just kind of spooky. Mm-hmm. And then the fifth thing is that I will ask AI to play devil's advocate and say, okay, I told you we're here and we're going this way, but what if I'm missing something? What if I'm overlooking an industry trend of how increasing inflation and electricity is going to change this market? And then it'll search the internet and find out, okay, based on where you're trying to go, here's some devil advocate of what's wrong with that. And I think most people, they have a great idea. They hear what they want to hear. They're not really open to what's wrong with it. But this is going back to asking those questions and gaining that true intelligence from something that has access to the internet and good reasoning models to say, yeah, you're overlooking this. Another trick along the same theme is after like 6 months of practice, ask AI how your prompts are doing well and how your prompts are not doing well, and what best practices out there you can incorporate to get better at asking those questions and have better prompt engineering. And the first time I did it, I legitimately got goosebumps because it knew my personality and what I had a tendency to do, like spot on.
It's studying you.
Well, and it knows because I'm very consistent, right? And I wasn't doing enough devil's advocate. So I was like, I got this great idea, let's go. And it's saying, hey, not so fast, consider your blind spots, which we all have, and goes back to that stance that it's not so much what you know, it's knowing what you don't know to ask those right questions to have more awareness. So like, for example, like if you were to ask AI about your house and your family, there's a lot of inference it's going to make. And you're going to see its inaccuracies because you're like, yeah, that's not really how my son acts, right? You're going to see that. But if you're doing something about a topic you weren't aware about, maybe the South Pacific Sea or something, you wouldn't know what it inferred and what it didn't because you're not in tune with that knowledge. It'll show you where it got its resources, but even then that can kind of be.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Like we were talking on Friday about, just don't trust the first answer when you research something because it's a summary based on you don't even know the source, So as a co-skeptic, how do you trust the answers that AI gives you? Do you take the time to find the sources and and trust it? Or
Some of us have seen the evolution and start of the internet, where
those of us on the Oregon Trail
yes, we saw the internet start.
with our flip phones in hand.
There wasn't that
ready.
many web pages, right? And now there's this saturation with content where there's just tons of information. And you could Google something causes cancer and find a reputable source, maybe even from like Mayo Clinic, that, hey, this can cause cancer. On the flip side, if you Google the opposite, like this cures cancer, you might find something from Harvard Health that supports the right balance of this in your pH cures cancer. So defining truth isn't so much an AI problem as it is just being open that there might be variations of the truth and that you need to do your due diligence. I don't, again, think that's an AI issue as much as you went back maybe 300 years before the internet and the only thing you knew is what your neighbor or family told you. So I think we're in a better place now that you have something that can help guide you, show you those resources. And then it takes the human eye just to kind of look and analyze, again, ask those questions like, what's wrong with this theory? And then you have the equivalent again of Einstein saying, they're overemphasizing causation versus correlation here. So the average person might not be able to see that, but using AI, you can challenge the resources right away. So it's an amazing time to be alive. Like, this is the best.
Kind of going back to the iRobot theory, or the Sarah Connor fear factor.
Mm-hmm.
What is your thought about AI surpassing basic knowledge? And I don't know, that's my fear, is that my children won't think for themselves. They're just going to ask AI and trust whatever the answer is, and that's that.
I'm not going to dismiss that possibility, because as I have 3 kids myself, I'm trying to educate them on critical thinking as well. I look at it, I'm more optimistic, although that's always going to happen. I think you need to talk to people that if they use AI without learning how things work or being critical, they're going to get to a job and obviously not know what they're talking about. So you can't have it do all your homework. And then, people need to practice using the tool. And where I think it's beneficial from a critical thinking standpoint is that there's a lot of people that procrastinate. I don't know if anyone in this room does, but some people procrastinate.
I work beautifully under pressure, by the way.
It's not that I'm procrastinating. I'm just busy doing other things.
That's right. That's the next meme t-shirt.
So this helps you get started sooner, because you can use AI to say, hey, start brainstorming, start creating an outline. And it's funny because humans have a pretty critical eye for things. Like, I don't know, maybe we're judgy creatures, but if you see someone wearing a $3,000 suit, you'll notice that one little stain on the suit, right? So when AI gives you this start, you can be real quick to say, no, that's not how I want it, right? But now you have something started that you can start working with. And they say the average human uses 8% of their brain. I think that hopefully we can get to 50% by using the co-intelligence of AI, because now you can move quicker. You can ask questions that I've been pondering for life and never really had the tool to leverage. And now you can move really fast. And that's where I feel like if you practice using the AI and learn what it can and can't do, and learn how it can help you, because we all have weaknesses, tons of them, and you can use the AI to kind of self-develop those weaknesses, you're going to move quicker. So striking what I would call co-intelligence, which sounds like a cyborg, but it's really leveraging the technology to develop yourself, to make, to be your best version. That's where I think people need to move towards, not just using AI as a crutch, but using it to teach yourself, learn, ask, be critical minded of things. That should probably be the first lesson we're teaching kids, is how to use AI to be critical of what you're hearing. and not run off with the first thing. Yeah, I'm optimistic that it will reach our fullest potential with it.
That's a good mindset to have, that it's not the crutch. It can enhance and help you develop. I think as a mom, that would be the compromise. That all right, this is gonna make you better, right? This is gonna help you, right?
Yeah.
Come up with a plan for this, or
Well, and you'll notice when you use it, we've all heard someone ask a question that you're like, hey, did you Google that? Yeah. Like they ask something or and you're like, hey, I have Google in my pocket. I can Google that to know how many home runs Babe Ruth hit or whatever. It's not something we're going to speculate. This is a fact. You're going to start seeing that with AI. And hey, did you start to challenge your retirement plan against AI and the hundreds of thousands of financial planners that it has access to? Did you find any holes in there with your taxes? Like if you have a plan that you're not putting through AI, then you're kind of missing the boat. So I even surprise myself on a daily basis where I'm facing a decent challenge that I haven't put into AI. And I talked about garbage in, garbage out, but then getting to gold in, gold out. The more you practice in that middle space, I'd almost call it like gold panning, where you have all this pay dirt and you got to sift through it to find the gold, but there's in there. And when you start getting more of that gold nuggets out of that pay dirt, then you're going to be a believer. And you call me when that day happens.
like, this actually helped me.
Yes.
A lot. It was so right about this thing, So how did you, I guess when you don't know what you don't know, like the prompt engineering part of it, I think that sounds like it's key to success with AI. And you keep mentioning practicing with it. Are there tools that you found? Like, how do you ask great questions? How did you get better through practicing?
So just having maybe pay for a subscription, and they can be like 10 or $20 a month. It's nothing too crazy. But just starting with maybe emails or marketing, maybe like a low level thing that you're just struggling with, and you put it in there. And again, know that you have to question what returns you get, and question like where would it have gotten that data, right? Like we talked about knowing your family and your house. Like it's going to come back so quick and with such confidence that
Like,
it surprises
how
people.
come you knew that and I didn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can move into a place where you're actually feeding it data. There are tools where you can put in like your business plan, put in your CRM data, and that'll give you a little more integrity to the returns. But I think to your initial question, just getting a tool, using like a 3-step of telling it to act, telling it the context, and telling it the task, and just starting to learn how it works, then it'll open your eyes to what it can and can't do. And again, that's changing. So just practicing. Anything
Just
you're
talk
doing
to it like
today.
a person.
Yeah,
Would-
and use your manners. I'm always nice to it. So
you never know.
So it doesn't come back and kill me. I know one of my coworkers would kill me for this, but he would struggle sometimes with frustration, and it would come across in his emails. So if you use AI and say, hey, write this in a tactful, professional, clear manner, I think you'd be blown away by how it can kind of remove some of maybe that frustration that's kind of in the undertone of your email. And another thing that I've seen businesses really progress with is using AI for meeting minutes.
Oh yeah.
You're seeing it with doctors using it with dictation, just so they can actually pay attention to you. They're not striking away on their keyboard. If you're using it for meeting minutes, and I actually have one right here in my pocket where I take it with me everywhere I go. I won't say the brand, but it'll capture everything, and then when you're done, it'll pull away the taskers that you talked about, who said what decisions were made. And again, it gives you a starting place where then everyone can look at it and adjust it, but at least you're moving forward quickly. Because how many meetings have you gone to and you had paper notes and you're like, all right, I'm going to get to that and I'm going to send up follow-up email. As soon as you get off that meeting, you go to another meeting. Next thing you know, you have like 8 of these that you need to get to at the end of the day. And it's such a manual process. But if you could work with a group and essentially have this assistant, which if you're recording other people, you obviously, Illinois state law would have to notify them. But if it's an internal meeting and everyone's good with it, you start to use it like almost like a courtroom recorder where you're like, hey, AI, make sure you put that in the follow on, or so and so's going to do this.
Let the record show.
Yeah, let the record show.
So and so forgot their notebook.
Yeah. And that seems like a small task, but it's almost these things where, again, it allows us to focus on running our business.
Yeah.
And not all these.
Where was that meeting? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be an easy way to,
a lot of
to
manual
integrate
stuff.
I could use that, actually.
She's warming up. She's warming up.
I'll have my cyborg tattoo by the end of the podcast.
All right.
All right. So, as a military man, we'll end on this. In your opinion, what role should the government play in regulating AI?
It's a tough one. I can't speak on behalf of the Department of Defense. My opinion does not reflect that of the United States Air Force. I personally just don't think the government can keep up with it. So if they can focus on one or two things of, whether it's the ethics guidelines and some of that stuff, it's just moving too fast. And being in cybersecurity, I've seen the government not able to keep up with just defending critical infrastructure. So I think there are very core pieces. Maybe it's disinformation or just the ethical guidelines these models are using, which is a lot easier said than done. But picking that maybe one guardrail that they focus on, but they're not going to be able to keep up with this. I think education helps. Even the things we talked about today helps, the American citizen on just being open-minded. And just skeptical of going to the source and not believing everything they're told. So education, maybe it's free or something like that, but they're not going to be able to keep up with this. The government's going to have to focus on using it to protect the nation, which there are AI fraud tools. I know I have one on my phone that just popped up a couple of months ago where it'll monitor my text messages, phone calls, and websites and alert me if I'm facing a scam. And I thought that was very promising. I just wasn't going to give it access to my phone. But those are out there. And I'm part of the Peoria InfraGuard group. We have a program where we go out and educate senior citizens on cybersecurity fraud. And that will be something we're definitely going to promote, saying, hey, turn this on your phone, because it's almost impossible to do it by case of, is this text message a fraud? You're better off just having a tool monitoring it and alerting them what's happening. So I think that the future of the government using AI will be in like robots and Department of Defense and things that it's really in a niche. But to put guardrails in place on this is moving too fast. I don't think they can keep up. Not to sound too promising there.
So the best resource for the American people is just to stay educated and know it's out there, know how it works, know how to spot something that might be harmful.
100%. I think that's really it.
And maybe there's a way that can help in some way, not be the bad guy, right? It's not always the bad guy. It's portrayed as the bad guy in all the movies.
Yeah. I think, from United States, like the SMB space, to learn the tools that can help them be more successful. I mean, too many small businesses don't succeed after what?
Couple years,
right? So I think it's just because they're wearing too many hats. You can leverage AI to help with offsetting a lot of those staff calories. That there's just a lot of manual processes. So I think it'll help a lot of small businesses more than anything. And that's the core of our country, right? So there are concerns from a security standpoint. They're all there, but there's way more promise from an efficiency standpoint to do things more accurate, do best practices. I think even in the more established companies, if they have maybe a CPI, continuous process improvement methodology, like a Six Sigma or something like that, I would take every single project you're working on and start using AI to help you drive efficiencies, because those are good programs that typically identify the pain points of your business. And those are ideal targets to start using AI, whether it's in the analysis or improvement phase. There's going to be some type of resource you can leverage AI in those. So I would highly recommend that. I would train your people, and I would train them alongside with AI until AI gets to a point where the AI can do the work. But I think it's just upskills your people more than it does replace jobs. We're just going to focus on bigger problems. I would start streamlining your processes. Like, I'd ask anyone in a company, hey, where do we have manual processes? Where do we have inefficiencies? And they'd all raise their hand, right? And then just start targeting those. And then I would look at what technologies work for your business. I would test them out. I wouldn't jump all in. And I would start cleaning up the data in preparation. Maybe you're not looking at AI today, but in the next 6 months, you're going to start looking at it. Start now just cleaning up the data in your systems, whether it's your CRM, your accounting software, like start cleaning that up. So when you do adopt AI, it's looking at clean data, because that'll be a really big difference between the value you get.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent advice.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the All Good Things with BBB podcast featuring Anthony Meany of Pearl Technologies. So think about easing into AI for your business. What can you do tomorrow that might help your business be better? Check out other episodes of the All Good Things with BBB podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is produced by Stephanie Blue, and the music you heard has been created by Andrew Smith in this office, and I'm your host, Jessica Tharp. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.